Lesson 17, Challenges and Risks, Part 2. Welcome to Lesson 17. In the previous lesson, we began our studies of some of the common challenges and risks in a SIAM environment. We'll continue our studies in this lesson looking at commercial challenges, including legacy contracts, security challenges, measuring success, trust and eliminating micromanagement. Our third challenge area is commercial challenges, including legacy contracts. Commercial challenges refer to how the SIAM model is established and the contracts that are put in place. The customer organization, the service integrator, and the service providers all need to feel they are getting a fair deal. Legacy contracts refer to the contracts that a customer organization has already signed. These might not be fit for purpose in the new SIAM model, or might expire before the SIAM model can be implemented, leading to a gap in service provision. Commercial challenges and legacy contract issues affect all parties in the SIAM ecosystem. If any service provider feels it is being treated unfairly or has been transitioned into a SIAM model under an inappropriate contract, it will be less willing to collaborate and communicate. This will make the service integrator's role harder and will affect the value that can be delivered to the customer organization. These challenges also affect every stage of the SIAM roadmap. Commercial decisions are made during discovery and strategy, with detail added during plan and build. The effectiveness of these decisions will be constrained if there are legacy contracts that need to be included in the SIAM model. During the implement roadmap stage, commercial and contractual structures are established, and they will be monitored for effectiveness during run and improve. Contracts within a SIAM model should allow for a degree of flexibility as the model develops. Legacy contracts might not allow any flexibility. We're going to study the risks associated with commercial decisions and legacy contracts and their mitigation. Click on Risks and Mitigation to learn more. Commercial risks in a SIAM environment can include service providers who feel their contract is unfair. This can lead to a lack of collaboration and communication and can also lead to a service provider exiting the SIAM model early. Poorly defined service boundaries. If it isn't clear which service provider is contractually responsible for delivering a service or element of a service, the role of the service integrator will be much more challenging. A lack of service integrator empowerment. The service integrator doesn't hold the contracts with the service providers, so if the customer organization doesn't empower the service integrator to act as its agent, the service integrator is unlikely to be effective. The final commercial risk is that service providers might impose their own contracts, rather than agreeing a contract with a customer organization. This can make it more difficult to integrate the service provider into the SIAM model. For example, at Ceylon Ordnex, NetCorp might refuse to deviate from its standard contract that is offered to all customers. As a part of this, it states that it won't attend any of the structural elements like process forums and working groups, and it won't provide information to the service integrator. This situation is a risk, but can be managed. The service integrator might, for example, agree to check the NetCorp website regularly for service status updates, rather than expecting to receive updates from NetCorp staff. The risks associated with legacy contracts will include increased costs. These could include paying for an extension to a contract that is due to expire before the SIAM model is in place, or paying to exit a contract early. A gap in service, where a legacy contract has expired before the SIAM model is established. Increased workload for the service integrator, trying to integrate the legacy contracts into the SIAM model. Would you experience any of these in your organization? Are you a customer organization, or a service provider, or a service integrator? There are many ways to mitigate commercial risks. As with any organizational change, careful planning will increase the likelihood of success. Mitigation actions might include getting access to skills and experience during contract negotiation, possibly from an external organization. Defining service boundaries and interactions clearly, so that each service provider understands its role. Developing clear and unambiguous contracts that are suited to the SIAM environment, including defining the role of the service integrator and outlining service targets that support the end-to-end service, as well as associated penalties and service credits. Contract reviews should take place regularly once the SIAM model is in place, to ensure the contracts are meeting all stakeholder requirements. We're going to ask you to think about how the risks associated with legacy contracts can be mitigated. Plan to spend 15 minutes on this exercise, and don't forget to check out our suggested solution. The main risk areas for legacy contracts are risks associated with contracts not being fit for purpose, risks associated with contracts expiring before the SIAM model is in place. Try and think of 3 mitigations for each of these areas. For example, it would be a good idea to start by mapping all the contracts and their expiry dates to help identify how long the risk will be present. The next challenge area we'll study is security. In a SIAM model, data and information must be shared between the customer organization, the service integrator, and the service providers. The model needs to have an effective security policy that includes roles, responsibilities, legislative and regulatory requirements, communication, and reporting. This challenge affects all of the SIAM layers. Each layer will have roles and responsibilities that support the security of the overall model. Security considerations need to be addressed during the plan and build roadmap stage. If they aren't designed during the early parts of the roadmap, they will need to be addressed retrospectively. This could mean higher costs and changes to contracts during run and improve. We're going to look at the security risks and their possible mitigation. Click on Risks and Mitigation to learn more. There are many risks related to ineffective security in a SIAM model. The customer organization will ultimately feel the pain if legislative or regulatory requirements are breached, so it needs to make sure the service integrator and service providers understand their responsibilities. A lack of security planning can mean that roles and responsibilities aren't clearly defined, critical information isn't identified, and processes are inadequate. Commercially sensitive data might be shared inappropriately between service providers, and security tasks might be duplicated or not carried out at all. Can you remember seeing a news story related to a security breach in a multi-provider model? In 2016, 40,000 Tesco bank accounts were compromised in a cyber attack, with many reports blaming a supplier involved in the service delivery. No organization wants to be in the news for this type of reason. Fortunately, security risks can be mitigated with careful planning. This will include defining and communicating a clear security strategy, with compliance monitored by the service integrator. Designing and implementing an end-to-end security management system supported by processes, reporting, audits, and a security process forum. Identifying information assets and putting procedures in place to protect them. The next challenge area we'll study is measuring success. When we studied the business case for SIAM, we said that a customer organization will expect to achieve business value from adopting a SIAM model. If a customer organization isn't able to measure how well its SIAM model is performing, it won't be able to demonstrate this business value. This challenge will affect the customer organization. The manager or department that proposed the move to a SIAM model might find their reputation is damaged, and the organization might feel it has wasted money. The service integrator will also find its role more difficult if there isn't an effective end-to-end performance management and reporting framework. During the run and improve roadmap stage, it will be difficult to identify if service targets are being met and where improvement is needed. Measures should be defined during the plan and build roadmap stage and linked to the business case drivers for adopting SIAM. Measurements will need to evolve with the SIAM model and should be included in improvement activities. We're going to look at the risks associated with an inability to measure success and their potential mitigation. Click on Risks and Mitigation to learn more. The risks associated with measuring success will include no effective end-to-end reporting framework, measurements that don't align with or provide evidence to support the business case for SIAM, not measuring the right things, measuring too much information, or not measuring enough. Measuring too much or too little information can have the same end result. Measuring too much can mean that the service integrator and the customer organization are overwhelmed with information, so they can't see what's important. Not measuring enough means there isn't enough data to identify what's important. Measuring too much information often wastes time and effort as well. The main way to mitigate risks associated with measuring success is with an effective performance management and reporting framework. But as you can probably imagine, this is easy to say and can be difficult to do. During the plan and build roadmap stage, it's important to identify what will be measured, when, how, by whom, and why. We discussed some report structures and using a mixture of qualitative and quantitative measures earlier in the course. Reports must be reviewed regularly to make sure they are fit for purpose. The final challenge area we'll study in this lesson is trust and eliminating micromanagement. An effective SIAM model is built on communication and good relationships between all the organizations involved. Lack of trust can manifest in two areas: a lack of trust between the customer and the service integrator, a lack of trust between the service integrator and the service providers. This can lead to micromanagement, duplication of work, and increased costs related to unnecessary checks. Lack of trust can affect all organizations in the SIAM model. It is usually identified in the later stages of the SIAM roadmap, often during Run and Improve. If clear roles and responsibilities are developed during the plan and build stage, lack of trust can be identified more easily. We're going to ask you to think about the risks associated with a lack of trust with an exercise. Plan to spend 15 minutes on this exercise, and don't forget to check out our suggested solution. Lack of trust can manifest in two areas: a lack of trust between the customer and the service integrator, a lack of trust between the service integrator and the service providers. Try and note down 3 risks for each of these areas. For example, if the service integrator doesn't trust the service providers, it might duplicate their workload, leading to waste and extra cost. The risks associated with a lack of trust can be mitigated during the plan and build roadmap stage by creating a SIAM model with clear roles and responsibilities and a governance framework. Adopting a phased approach for the SIAM implementation can help the customer to develop trust in the service integrator, and using all of the structural elements like process forums and working groups will build relationships and increase trust. When micromanagement is identified, it should be managed as an opportunity for improvement. Click on the Next button to access your end-of-lesson quiz when you're ready. When you finish the quiz, click the Next button again to move on. You've completed Lesson 17, where we've continued our studies of challenges and risks. In Lesson 18, we'll complete our studies in this area by looking at culture, collaboration, and cooperation in a SIAM model.